I'm with Hayley Campbell, head of the engineering team at EventStore. And hello, Hayley. I always forget to say hello to people.
Hello.
Hello. And we're going to talk about what's happened recently. That is a new version of EventStore, long-term support, 21.10.
Yeah.
Which means that's a supported version for the next 2 years.
Yeah. So supported until 23.
23, yes. Or until the next long-term support, 23. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So basically means we have nowadays 2 long-term support versions coming in that are in release mode. That's 20.10 and 21.10. And what's happening to 20.10 because we're adding new feature to 21.10. So we have 21.10.1.2.3, but how are we working to bring changes to the previous release? How does that work here?
The previous LTS gets bug fixes and patches and that sort of thing, but it doesn't get new features.
Mm-hmm.
New features are added to the new LTS, and those will be supported going forward and patched. But generally, it's only the bug fixes that get ported back.
Yeah. So that also means because we have interim releases as well. So we actually we preview features on interim releases, and do they get backported or do they make it to the next LTS version then?
The interim releases are not supported beyond the next release. They're just for previews of new features, bug fixes, that sort of thing. So the features and interim releases get pushed forward to the next coming LTS, but bug fixes in those also get backported to the current LTS or current supported LTS releases.
Yeah. So new features always to the next version.
Yeah.
And hopefully they make it to a long-term support because people like those features. And we did have did have quite some changes in the 21.10 release and a bit overall. And I think there was primarily performance related stuff that made it to this release.
Yeah, so the major changes between 21.6 and 21.10 was the performance changes for improving index performance. So we've added bloom filters that will improve it improves reads and writes to streams that don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to write to a stream that doesn't exist in EventStore can be quite costly if you've got a large index, because EventStore will check the whole index trying to find the stream that you're writing to. But with the bloom filters, we can skip that step most of the time and just to say whether or not that stream exists. If it doesn't exist, we know we can create it.
Yep. So that's for new stream. There's been also some improvement on the indexing itself to know where our stream is located a bit everywhere. There's a cache over there as well.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big change on performance improvement, which is a path to something we are calling log v3, which will also bring in a lot of improvements on performance and sizes of database.
Yeah.
The primary reason, I think, if I understood correctly, of adding those enhancements to indexes is for very large systems. We're talking about billions of
Yeah,
events
it's
and hundreds of millions of streams. So there's some improvements there for people having that kind of systems. There's also an important characteristic of LTS versions is that there should always be some forward path from LTS to LTS.
yeah. So the idea is starting from 20.10, the LTS coming after it, you can always upgrade to. There'll be an upgrade path. There might be a couple of breaking changes, but the upgrade path will be clear and non-destructive. So yeah, we hope that that helps people with rolling upgrades. That's not true for the interim releases. There
Mhm.
might be, breaking changes, or you have to start a new database or something like that in an interim release with specific features. For example, logv3 at the moment is experimental, and you can't run that on an existing database, and we don't have upgrades and stuff like that yet.
Yeah.
But by the time it becomes LTS, we intend on having tooling and upgrade paths and stuff like that.
Yeah, or as a well, maybe non-destructive, but you said it, rolling upgrades and making sure that servers can talk to servers of different version. I guess that's one of the thing. There's that compatibility between LTS, but there's also some changes we made on the server itself to advertise what it can do, which is helpful for the client side of things.
Yeah, we've now added the ability for clients to ask the server what features it supports over gRPC. And so that allows us to, when writing clients, for the client to query the server, what do you support? Is this feature available? And it can give you a much better error message than, not supported or not found.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, I think we're using that for are we using that for the $O stream reads, persistent subscriptions?
Yeah, the clients that will be coming out will be making use of that. So if you try to create a persistent subscription to all on 20.10, it's not going to work, but the errors should tell you that it's because it's an incompatible version.
Yep.
And it should work on 21.10.
Yeah, which basically that the fact that the server advertises is capabilities is to allow seamless upgrades of applications and the clients, because we are getting more and more clients and we need upgrade path for them. And by clients, I mean Java, Rust, Go, .NET, and upgrading them has always been difficult, let's say, because of changes, or you need the correct client version to talk to the correct server to be able to use those features, or it kind of breaks, and those server capabilities can help them.
Yeah. It also would allow us to do things like say that the latest client will always support the current 2 LTSs.
Yep.
In some capacity.
Yep.
Obviously, you can't use features that aren't there yet, but it would also allow us to put in new features for the interim releases so that people can make use of them before the LTS release comes out.
Yeah, and also for degrading in a good way, because we have something called batch appends as well, which is supported already, I think, in 21.10. I'm not sure anymore now, but clients need to talk to the server in a certain way. But if it talks to a previous version, it will talk to the server in a different way because it doesn't advertise that feature then.
Yeah, the batch appends greatly improves the performance of appending to a stream. And on 21.10, the new clients will use that by default. But if you connect to 20.10, if you try to append, it'll just fall back to the previous way of appending, which still works.
So to summarize, we have like the servers where we want that upgrade path from LTS to LTS at least, and make it as non-breaking as possible, and that you can just roll forward. But we're doing the same on the clients actually.
Yeah.
So that's that's a big change, because that means that you can keep your clients, and we have added some interesting features there for our clients as well, for being able to connect to a version 5, which is out of support, and to a version 20 or version 21 server as well. So compatibility modes.
Yeah, that's only on the TCP client. But we wanted to make the upgrade from v5 to v20.10 or 21.10 as easy as possible, because there are, that's not a rolling upgrade. So, anything we can do to make that a bit easier is good.
Yeah. And on this release, we also have a big changes, and that is in the projection subsystem. So the JavaScript-based indexing features.
Yeah. So previously projections were running on the V8 engine for interpreting JavaScript and that sort of thing. We've changed it to an interpreted projection subsystem. So that allows us to later introduce better debugging features, and also it allows us to support ARM64 releases, because V8 was not, we couldn't bundle V8 for ARM64.
Yep.
So now that that's fixed, we can start with packaging that for ARM systems.
Yeah, and currently we have, I think, an experimental package available to Docker, which makes it accessible for people having a Mac M1, but also to run those kind of workloads on ARM-based CPUs on cloud, or hopefully my Raspberry Pi, which is lying around here somewhere, and have my cluster on the Raspberry Pi running.
Yeah.
So those are. I think ARM is a big deal for us there.
Yeah. We also have had someone manage to get it running on their cell phone.
Yeah, that's quite impressive.
I don't quite know how useful that would be, but it's pretty cool that it can happen.
Yes, we can reuse our phone instead of throwing them away. So the less waste. That's good. Are there any changes that were made in our QA for this so quality assurance for this release? Because it has evolved a lot, I think, in the last few months.
Yeah, so we've basically, when we do QA of EventStore, we try and improve the process as we go. So that means more automation. That we've also expanded most of the gRPC client repos to test against both LTS releases, so we can catch any regressions on the server through that. We've also started rolling in the performance tests more. We haven't quite nailed those down yet, but we will hopefully be able to publish actual numbers for the releases. And also we put a bit more focus on improving the documentation with the release, trying to get the new features or new options documented at the time of the release rather than a short while afterwards.
Yes. Yeah, to be honest, there's an internal change there inside the company as well, because I think we already talked about that, or I touched about that with other people. We are making internally RFCs for new features or improvements and so on, which basically means things are better understood and better documented before we actually begin with the work, which makes it more easy to document afterwards as well, or at least to record the decision or the constraints we put around some of the changes we introduce in the clients or the database. So that's an internal change, but I hope that will be at least someday visible outside of EventStore as well, because that's quite a change there.
Yeah. Once we've sort of refined the process a bit, we do want to at least make the client RFCs visible to the public, because that would help anyone who wants to create their own gRPC client. You can see any sort of standards or default parameters or decisions, why we made those decisions. And yeah, we hope it makes it easier for people to understand what's going on and why.
And why? That's important, because actually, talking about clients, recently we have a lot of help from the community on different clients. I mean, mainly on the Go one lately, and the Java one. So that's also something that is changing, and having those decisions public will hopefully help the community or the users reach out to us for ideas or improvements that we can make, and to keep it usable and stable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about that release?
Not at the moment. Well, with this release, we are ending the support for version 5.
Yep.
I believe on paper it's until the end of the year. So the release is supported. There's a 2-month grace period after a release goes out of support for upgrades. So yeah, we highly recommend upgrading from V5 to either 20.10 or 21.10, depending on which works best for you or which you've tested, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
people shouldn't hesitate to reach out if they need help.
Yeah. And also, if you're on an interim release, 21.2 or 21.6, we recommend upgrading to 21.10, and there shouldn't be any breaking changes between those versions, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, new configurations or automated configuration that is automated. There's a few tweaks we introduced there to make the system more easy to configure.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of goodness. So please upgrade. it's for the better.
Yeah.
QA cycle, we have LTS. So there's a lot of things are moving forward. So thanks a lot for your time, Hayley, and see you around.
Yeah, thank you.